Hello and welcome back.
Well, lately we have been doing a lot of sissy recipes like vegetables and fried rice and what have you not. Today we're going to do the king of barbecue, and that is brisket on the smoker.
And when we hear brisket, we immediately think of Texan smoked meat with barbecue sauce, which is actually the national dish of Texas. However, it originated in Central and Eastern Europe, and as it is not a prime cut, it needs long time to marinate and many hours to slow cook.
Unfortunately, our butcher sent us an inferior cut. I was planning to do this so I could show you how to do Kansas City burnt ends. That will be in a later episode, because we got a brisket without the point. So now we're going to show you how to make a substandard brisket, tender and delicious.
Stay tuned.
I bought this online from our butcher that we've been dealing with many times, and it came frozen, and when I got it out of the cryo bag, I was left with this, which barely qualifies to be called a brisket. I'm a little bit disappointed, I have to say, but I will turn that into some good eating, and that's a challenge.
Challenge accepted, baby.
Barney Stinson style. Now let me show you what we're dealing with here. Obviously we have some silver skin on the top, but let's deal with that in a little bit. If you see the bottom here, we have some loose meat hanging. They didn't do a very nice job. I think they had an apprentice doing this, but this will not go to waste. We are going to trim it off, and then we're going to save it to make some minced meat for burgers. So nothing goes to waste. Because you see, this flabby thing here, it will never cook properly when we get it on the grill. So needs to go. That'll be
It's so much easier, when we buy the meat in the States.
Yeah, the cuts are so much, but this will make quite a nice ½ kilo of minced meat. Then there is some hard fat here. This, on the other hand, I'm not going to save because this will not render into anything good. So
that's garbage.
That's garbage, yes, absolutely. And now it's just a question of removing all the silver skin here. Get your knife underneath and make sure you have a good sharp knife like this. And you want to get all the silver skin off so we expose the meat so we can add some flavor with our rub later. But I think I'm changing strategy here a little bit. What we're going to do is when we finish trimming, then we are going to salt this and dry brine it overnight so we can get some tenderness into this, because it doesn't have very good fat marbling either. Well, as I said, it will become good eating anyway.
I have faith in you.
Thanks. Before we flip this over, I just want to trim the edges a bit, because as you can see here, this piece here is very thin and that will just burn up on the smoker. So we're going to corner that off here and save that for our minced meat. And the same over here, we have some flaps hanging out here. We don't want that. So let's get that off. And then I'll show you when we flip it over. There we go. And then we have some oxidized meat over here. Just get it. I think I'll continue with this one. Just to get that off. Like that. There we have it, nice and even. Then let's flip it over and see how it looks. Now, the last thing is the rest of the silver skin on the top side here to get that off. Here it is, cleaned up on both sides, and quite a yield of trimmings here that will make maybe 1 kilo of minced meat after all, so that's going to be good. Now all I want to do is I want to give it a good coating of sea salt. I want to make sure we give it a good coating. It is a big piece of meat. I think we have about 7 kilos left here.
Why do we do that?
we are going to dry brine it overnight because this will draw out the moisture from the meat and then return into the meat with the salt by osmosis. So that's,
Clever.
and that will help tenderize it, because with that little fat marbling we have, then we need to do something. And there we have the other side. But important here is that it's on a rack so that it has air all around. You don't want to have it lying flat, because then the juices will just run into the pan. It's important that it has air all around. I think that looks good to me. And now all there is to do is to put it in the fridge overnight so we can cook it tomorrow. It's the next day, bright and early, and look how our brisket has turned color into almost mahogany. Very nice and dry. I have here the rest of our rub, which is 3 tablespoons of freshly cracked pepper, 3 tablespoons of paprika, and 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. We don't need to salt anymore, obviously, because we did that yesterday. So now we're going to give it a nice even coat. Remember to get the sides also. I want to get all of it a good coating. Back end here. Let's flip this over. Nice. And don't be afraid to use a lot of rub here, because it is a big piece of meat. It will not be over seasoned. There we go. And just pat that in. And then we're going to let that sit for 10-15 minutes until the rub has set on the surface. Time to get it in. I have the hopper filled with hickory pellets, and I'm running at a temperature of 120 degrees. Actually, I want to cook it a little bit hotter, but I know my grill runs 10-15 degrees warmer over here than the setting. So here I have 130, 135. Now we're going to position that nicely here. And remember, the way you tuck it in here, that's the way it's going to cook. So you want to make sure that you don't have any holes where the liquids can pool up. So tuck it nicely like that. And then we're ready to close this up. And now we're going to let that go for at least a couple of hours before we check in on it. 2 hours in, let's sneak a peek. That looks good. Let's also check the temperature now we are here. 55, 57, okay. Then it's getting a little bit dry, so I want to give it a spritz of apple cider vinegar water, half. And that will help develop a very good bark. Like that. Perfect. And now I'm going to add a thermometer so we can keep an eye on it. I want to look for 70, 75 degrees before the next step. Perfect. Let's give it at least another hour before we see it again. We've hit a core temperature of 75 degrees, so now it's time to wrap our brisket. I'll put that back in. Let's get it out. That's a nice bark we have on this one. I have an aluminum foil pan with a rack inside, and now I'm going to add, let's say, half a liter of beef broth to the bottom. I have the rack because I don't want the brisket to lie inside the liquid, and that will destroy the nice bark we have built up. And then I'm going to foil it over. Nice and tight. Make sure it's tight on the sides here so we don't get too much steam out. We want it to start steaming in here. Now, let's get that back on the smoker. There we go. And then let me get the temperature probe back in. It's still warm, so I can keep an eye on it. And now we let it go till we get up to around 96, 97, and then we'll test it for probe tenderness. I started probing at 93 degrees, but it was still tough. It wasn't the best cut of beef, as said from the beginning. So let's see where we are now. That feels better. And we're all the way up at 97, 98 degrees, but now it feels soft and goes in easy. And let's get this out of here. And then let's see how it looks in here. That's a lot of steam. And we get this out of the way. Well, actually it doesn't look too shabby. It's like the ugly duckling of briskets. Now, I'm gonna get it out of here. It feels good though. Now I'm gonna wrap it like this, see if I have enough. I think it will work. And now we're gonna let that rest here until the core temperature goes down to mid-80s. And then I'm gonna turn down the pellet smoker to 65 degrees, and then I'm gonna let it rest in there. Well, we let it rest in the pellet smoker for a couple of hours. Now it's time to see how we did. So let's get it out of the wrap here. Well, it definitely smells good. And it also looks pretty good. So, the moment of truth here. Let's see if we can make some nice slices. Well, we definitely got a good smoke ring. Look on that. That looks really good.
That's successful.
That part is successful. Smoke ring,
Done.
That's done.
Smell also done.
Yeah.
It smells quite amazing.
Exactly. It smells very good. I'm just carving these like this thickness, like half a centimeter, something like that. You don't want them too thick. But
Let's give it a taste.
now I think it's about time. Let's see. Okay. Bend test approved. That's what you want to see on a brisket.
Yeah.
Then let's try to do the pull. Little bit of effort. Actually, pretty solid result, I have to say.
Is it good?
This is definitely the ugly duckling brisket. We had the most horrific cut of brisket I have seen. Never order brisket online. It was a bad idea. You have to go pick it out yourself. But this is how you save a bad cut of beef into something really good, because this is actually fantastic.
Well done, baby.
Thanks.
Well done.
Now we have it all sliced up. Now I'm gonna arrange it back into our au jus, because that is gonna give it some extra goodness. We are actually gonna leave it here overnight and serve it in the morning. Trust me, it is making it twice as good as it is right now.
We always do that trick when we have sauce, because it becomes so much more juice and tender and flavored. It's amazing, guys. Always do that.
When we do choc eye roll, whatever.
Or just beef in lemon sauce or in tomato sauce, wherever it is, just leave it. The next day is extremely tasty.
Yeah, you see, and then press this down like this, and you're gonna have the most amazing, juicy and flavorful beef in the morning.